All right, guys, you are in for a treat. We have a great episode of the Deal Finders podcast coming up with my friend Brandon Bateman from Bateman Collective and some of our deal partners. We've got some of our deal partners, some of our team members for the Deal Finders Club on the call. This is one of the things we do weekly is a marketing call and support call where we will dive into marketing. And so we recorded this one and did it podcast style. So hopefully you will enjoy this. And if you have any questions, love to hear from you. Put some comments. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you in there. All right, guys, we are back with another Deal Finders podcast. And this is actually a really exciting one because we have some of our deal partners and Deal Finders Club members, some of our team members on the call live so that we can interrogate Brandon all about PPC. So Brandon Bateman with Bateman Collective, thanks for joining us. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then let's just talk about what everybody wants to know, how to get more leads and how to get more deals. So tell us about yourself, Brandon.
Sure. Yeah. Let's see. I'm from Utah. As you can see behind me here, beautiful, sunny Utah sometimes. Also lots of snow sometimes. I'm a dad. I got two little girls, a 3 and 1. And I've been professionally, what I've been doing for about 8 years is all online marketing stuff. That's when I started Bateman Collective 8 years ago. The beginning of the company is kind of slightly unusual in the world of entrepreneurship. I started it when I was I think at the very beginning of my sophomore year of college, just looking to learn more about marketing. It's just kind of slowly snowballed into the company that it is today. Which has been a pretty cool experience. We work just with real estate investors. We've helped real estate investors generate over $100 million worth of assignment fees. We spent tens of millions of dollars on ads. At this point, we're spending about $2 million on ads for real estate investors every single month. So that's the story, kind of where I came from and what we do. And now Bateman Collective, we're a company of about 35 people. We've got about 200 different real estate investors that we work with all across the country to help them figure out this online lead generation.
That is incredible. Straight out of college into this a business where now you have 35 team members, 200 clients. I'm sure it's been more than 200 in and out. That's awesome, dude. That's amazing. If I had, the victory bell, I'd ring it. You know who I'm talking about. So I've got a lot of questions that we were going to dive into, some nitty gritty stuff, but I got to ask you to start with our podcast. Do you yourself buy real estate? Do you invest in real estate?
Well, I practice what I preach, and what I preach is hire the experts to do this stuff. So as it relates to real estate, people look at it all the time. Here's the thing. The same way that you look at digital marketing, where you're like, oh, that looks kind of complicated. That's a little bit scary. I don't know that much about that. That's kind of how I look at real estate. Now, do I believe in real estate? Absolutely. Do I invest? Yes. But I invest with other people that know a lot more about it than I do. And I trust them to manage things. So I'm what you call a passive investor in real estate.
I love that. So, so somebody, a real estate investor comes to you and they say, well, how would you know how to get me leads and get me deals if you don't even do this business?
Well, how do you know how to buy houses if you don't know how to generate the leads?
Right. Exactly.
I have different skill sets, right? We all kind of have their own thing that they do. But what, and I know you're saying that kind of tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But it's a real thing actually, because we have some competitors that are real estate investors, and they also have the marketing company, and it seems like people almost view that as a more positive thing, because the fact that you also have a real estate company means you must understand me better, you must understand my industry better, and ultimately, what I've come to believe is that people do really well when they specialize, and if you have it's all about, and this is what I had to figure out for my team and everything. It's all about how do you get people to care about the right things? Because the stereotypical problem that you have between an agency and a client is that the agency, the marketers just care about generating the leads, and then the client just cares about the lead quality, and then there's this natural disconnect. So you think well, if only they're not generating the right leads because they don't know my industry, they don't know what a distressed seller looks like or whatever the case is. So we've had to be really intentional about finding ways to optimize and hold our team accountable to like the end result for our client that they care about, not just an in-between thing. Like you can't, like I have this firm belief about marketing. You can't just say like the marketing people are responsible for leads and then the sales people are responsible for everything else, because the reality is like how well the leads close has a lot to do with the marketing, right? And how well it progresses through different stages of the funnel. So I'm a firm believer that there's a good way to figure that out, and you should have marketing people responsible for their thing and sales people responsible for their thing. But it's not like your marketing people have to like be buying houses. Like there's ways to like gather that data, close the loop, and most people just aren't doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it was kind of a tongue in cheek question, but it's real because we see it all the time. And again, I kind of preach the same thing, which is let the experts do what the experts do. A lot of our partners in here, some of them are agents, and they're like, we do flips together, and I want to sell it myself so that I can save money on the commission. And I'm like, yes, but you would actually lose money probably, because you would be spending your time trying to learn how to sell a flipped property versus all of this time and energy and education and experience you put into learning how to flip the property. And then you're learning a different piece of that, which ultimately would be an expense to you somehow, some way. So letting the experts be a part of your team. When we work with our partners, building a team, building a dream team, whatever you want to call it, in your business is the number one thing, and it never stops. We never stop. We just had Monique jump on. Monique, we're recording this. It's a podcast, so now you're going to be world famous. Where she was testing out a new contractor, and it didn't work well, right? That's going to happen. You're going to test out and see if these professionals or these contractors or these marketing companies can work in your business, and sometimes it's not going to work out well. So you kind of talked about that a little bit. Can you help us figure out how to see if a marketing company is the right fit for us? How do we qualify them or grade them, if you will?
It's a good question, and I've asked myself this question, and I have like more reasons I feel like there's no answer to the question than I have like beliefs about like what the right answer is. Because here's the thing, like all the stuff that people usually do doesn't really work. Like you can go ask people about how their experience with them was, but like, some people have positive experiences, some people have negative experiences with any company, right? And sometimes they're building on like a lack of sustainability, and you're in an industry where there's a lot of data sparsity, right? So results like look really good or really bad a lot of the time, and they rarely look like kind of in the middle, and you need theoretically years of data to prove that it's like working, right? So there's that component. And then there's the component of like, you could say, well, you have to make sure their strategies make sense and stuff. But the problem is that you'll run into is every company you talk to sounds like they know what they're talking about, because you don't know what you're talking about, and you're trying to evaluate other people on skills that you don't have, and you can't do that. That's not possible. Not to mention you're talking to a salesperson, not to the person who's actually going to be managing your campaign, which in the wrong company, the salesperson is the most experienced. At Bateman Collective, ironically, the salesperson will probably be the least experienced person that you talk to, right? Because that's their job. Their job is sales. So there's a lot of there's a lot of uncertainty, and I think what it really comes down to is you have to work with people that believe the same things you believe. And I'll tell you like some of those things for me that are really important. So this is a little bit of like my values, kind of like projecting those onto you and saying there should be important. But these are just some things I find are always true about marketers. Number one, they have to be curious. You have to evaluate this company. You have to figure this out. Like I can tell you, like the number one thing that I see that like tells me that somebody's like really not the best partner, like when I'm evaluating marketing partners for my own company and stuff like that, is it comes down to like, do they have the attitude of like, we figured this out and now we're just going to do the same for you? Or do they have the attitude of like, I am a lifelong student of being the best in the world at this? And it's a totally different attitude. One of them is like, imagine I want to be the fastest runner in the world, or I wanted to find the fastest runner in the world. What am I going to look for? Somebody who figured out how to run faster than anybody else 10 years ago, and then they stopped there? Or am I looking for the person who's running every single day? right? I'm looking for the person who's running this every single day because they're going to end up being the best, right? So you want to find like people who are curious. And the other aspect of curious is they use data to make decisions. I think a common pitfall that people run into is they tend to trust people too much, and they just kind of take their numbers for face value. And they don't realize that like an aspect of integrity is accuracy. And what a lot of marketers are missing is they're telling you something they believe to be true, and they're just giving you a really optimistic viewpoint of like what their clients are getting in terms of returns and that kind of thing. And ultimately they're just like lying to get clients. You find a lot of that, but they don't actually, they even believe their own stuff just because like they have inaccurate, non-detail oriented views of what actually is happening. So that's something I tell my team sometimes is like integrity is not just telling the truth. It's actually like accuracy in your own thoughts and understanding of things. So a lot of people just kind of talk to a bunch of marketers and they're like, well, this guy says you can give me a 2x return. This other guy quoted me a 5x return. I'm going to go with the 5. When for all you know, the guy who says 2 actually gets better results on average, and the guy who says 5 is delusional.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Yeah. I think this is Hormozy who says this all the time. It's you you can understand, or you can better evaluate a company, a contract, or a person in marketing based on the data that they're using and how they use that data. And so, from what you just said, being curious and using the data and curious about the data is primary. And that's what we do in our business as home buyers, is we collect as much data as possible, and we're curious as to see, well, why is this different? Why, how come last year postcards were terrible? And let's dig in, let's figure it out. Because before, postcards were always amazing. And it's not that postcards are terrible or postcards are amazing. That's what the data was telling us at that time, what's different, and so good marketers are going to ask those questions.
Yeah, 100%. I think a good comparison for this, and this is like, I mean, we talk about agencies, but I'm even just talking about like how you approach marketing your own company. Like think about it. Like if you think in your mind, what's the difference between accounting and finance? The difference is accounting is about the past. Finance is about the future. Accounting's about counting the beans, basically. And finance is about like, well, what does that mean for the business? And if you look at like marketers, a lot of people think marketers are basically like the bean counters of revenue generation.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they take that same mindset to it, where like all of marketing is just like, you look at what return you have on everything, and then you just like cut the bad one and you keep the good one, you double down. And it's just like, it's all just accounting for the different things. But the best marketers act a lot more like a CFO than an accountant, in the sense that they try to see through, like, do they care about the numbers? Do they care about accurate accounting of what's happened? Absolutely. But why is that useful? It's a lens to see the future through, right? And they're always viewing the future as probably a little bit different from the past. What are the trends? What's going to change? And also, what are the levers to pull to make it look different?
Oh, I love that. That's great. A great way to think about it, a great way to look at it. And so I want to kind of get into, since we have some of our partners and team members on the call, into some like, what is it really that Bateman Collective does? So you have 200 clients throughout, the country. We talked about some data, some curiosity. We can talk about some of the work we've done together. But you focus. You don't do billboards and you don't do postcards. You do one thing. So what is that one thing? And can you just define it, explain it a little bit to us?
Yeah. So what we do is we basically help investors find motivated sellers through online channels. That would be the one thing. Now, there's a few different ways that can happen, right? So if you look at the number one channel that people hire us for, it's called pay-per-click marketing. The way pay-per-click marketing works, let's just say you were to go to Google right now and you were to search for We Buy Houses. What you'd find is that there's some ads that pop up there. It turns out those ads are actually really influential. They could change your behavior. They could change who you're going to sell a house to, because you're looking for a solution. Then there's a solution right there, right? It's like the modern version of a phone book from years ago, right? You don't open up the page unless you're looking for something, right? So that's the number one thing that we do. Now, there's other aspects of that. Like there's also going to be some listings that show up that aren't paid ads, that are organic. That's SEO. We also do that. Right? It's the same ultimate lead you're going after. You're just going after it a different way. And then we also do some ads on paid social, like through Facebook and Instagram. and those can be pretty effective as well. But at the end of the day, like what we're looking for is like there's all these different ways that motivated sellers are going to find the companies they're going to work with, and some of them are going to find the companies they're going to work with online. And we are the experts at understanding how that process happens and making the whole process of them finding you instead of your competition more efficient.
I love that. Yes. So you've obviously branched out, but you stick to the online sources and the expertise there. Um, t- so I actually just listened to another podcast where the guy. This is funny because I knew I was going to talk to you, and the guy was on there and he did the same thing. He started pay per click for his own business, and on the podcast he said everyone should do their own pay per click. They should figure it out and do it themselves. And we just kind of talked about the professionals and like what does that really mean. And when I heard him say that, I almost was like I was getting physically sick. I was like, there's no way I would try to learn this stuff. It changes every single day. Like, what in the world do you guys do that is different or unique or helps support investors better than others?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have so many different like lenses that we could view this from. I I would say a lot of it comes down to what is your goal for you and your business and what that looks like. And I will tell you, there are people who run their own PPC in this industry. They tend to be a loud, very small number of people. No, but it's really not that many people, right? So most people do work with agencies. So I'm not going to like, say like way too many people are managing in-house, because ultimately not that many people are actually managing in-house is what I tend to see. And that comes down to like, what are your dreams? Like if you told me, Andrew, that like your biggest dream is to run a real estate investment business, and you want to be like tinkering in the Google Ads platform, adjusting things, testing new ads, writing ads every week, going through search terms, like that's what you want from your business, then like, go chase your dreams. Like who am I to say that like you can't do that? But at the end of the day, I think as entrepreneurs, we have resources. But what are our resources? There are people, there are time, and there are money, right? And every one of these resources has the ability to be an asset or a crutch to us, right? So if you look at people, how can they be an asset? How can they be a crutch? Like, have you ever had someone on your team that you don't fire simply because you have no one else to replace them? And having a warm body in that seat is better than having nobody at all. That's a person being a crutch to you. But have you ever had somebody on your team who like elevates your business, multiplies what you can accomplish, helps you get better results? That's an asset, right?
Yeah.
Or what about that entrepreneur that like uses money to solve every problem they ever have? How much money do they end up with at the end of the day? Like not very much, right? They're using their money as a crutch, right? And to the same aspect, the entrepreneur who throws their time at every problem that they have ends up with their time being the crutch, and they end up with no time, right? So if you use money to solve all your problems, you're going to end up with no money. If you use time to solve all your problems, you're going to end up with no time. So what we have to do is we have to learn how to make our resources an asset, not a crutch. And I think the mindset of I'm going to learn to do this myself, even if that's not like my end goal, is just my time turning into a crutch for me to ultimately get where I want to go. And that's not actually going to serve me long term. And instead, there's ways that we can be a lot smarter about that. And that's like what agencies ultimately do. But here's the reality of the situation. It's if a lot of people try to do it themselves, there's two different reasons you could do it yourself. And they have two different goals. Reason number one, you don't want to pay for someone to do it.
Right.
And you're a client of ours. We're not cheap, right? We charge a lot of money to do that. The other reason is you feel like you can get better results by doing it yourself. So when it comes to like the not being willing to pay, that I think is pretty invalid, because at the end of the day, people don't go broke because they pay a management fee to manage their marketing spend. They go broke because their marketing doesn't work, right? The most important thing is that it works. If you have to spend a little money getting there, it's totally inconsequential compared to the reward of it working. So for most of our clients to completely cover our management fee, they just have to get 4% better results than they would get if they did it on their own. That's it, right? And that's like such a small difference in results, you might not even notice it. So, but the other aspect is, what if I believe that I could do it better myself? And that's where it comes down to, like, you have to find people who are better than you are. And like, what do we do that's different? Like there's a number of things that we do that's different. We actually have a whole course on it. You can go through 8 hours of content if you'd like to like see all the, all the little things that we do different. And if you want to copy some of those, like you're more than welcome to. I'd say there's a few core things that we do that are pretty different. Number one, we have more data than anybody else in the industry. Like I said, we've actually tracked more than $100 million worth of assignment fees back to the individual ads. And we have a whole database that shows for every one of those things, all the data about those people. And we use it to be predictive of who's the next person who's motivated this other house, right?
Yeah.
It's basically in the age that we're in marketing right now, more data equals better results. So we have tons and tons of data, right? And the way we use that's really, really clever. And then beyond that, we just are relentless in testing. Every single, this is actually something that I measure and hold my team accountable to. We have not spent a single dollar in 8 years that was not on a split test of someone.
Wow.
Every single dollar is on a split test. Why? Because data is sparse. You have to use every single opportunity you can to be moving things forward, right? Because as marketers, we don't just think like, I feel like this will work better than we do it. We have to test it and figure out if it works better. So we've done tons and tons of split tests. And we do manage everything for our clients. Like most PPC agencies, they don't manage the landing page. We know the landing page is one of the key things for success. If somebody has a 10% conversion rate, if we can make that 10.4% instead of 10%, which looks like a rounding error, we can completely cover our management fee with the extra revenue that the client's going to be getting. Because we look at return on management fee as something that matters, not just return on investment of the marketing. So there's so that's the component. Basically, we have tons of data and also tons of split testing data, and we're constantly evolving strategy, right? So that's kind of the whole game. Is I didn't view this company from the standpoint of like, how do I build something that gets the best results? I viewed it from the standpoint of how do I build the machine that's going to outperform every other machine. And how does that happen? It has to have tons of data flowing through it, and it has to constantly be testing, constantly iterating, constantly improving. And you do that, and you do that for on and off, you end up in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And guys, this is obviously we're talking online marketing, but the premise that Brandon's talking about, it goes through every piece of every piece of your business. Is consistency, doing it and testing, and then the data, tracking it, seeing what comes from that action that you're taking. I love that. And I want to make sure that you give us that course link. You want to do that now?
It's batemancollective.com/toolkit.
Okay.
You go there, you'll find an entire course on Google Ads and on Facebook ads. And it's, if you are for some reason interested in doing this yourself, by all means, that'll be a great resource to help you. And there are we have an actual following as a company of people who do it themselves that use our content to do it better. So if that's you, go chase that. Although I'd be, the reason I didn't create this course for so long is everybody wanted it. They're like, we need this. And I'm like, you don't need this. You don't want this.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to do this stuff.
I don't want it.
Just let us do it for you. It's going to be way easier. And people keep on asking. I'm like, fine. I guess if you want it, then all you're going to realize is that you don't want to do it yourself by the time you realize all the stuff that we actually do. So sure, I'll give it to you if that's what you really want. So it's kind of it's one of those things where it's I'm giving people what they want, not what they need, but they ask loud enough, I'll give it to them.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited because I think Amber might be interested in it. So she'll probably do that. Just all in marketing for us. Hey, we've got a couple of partners and team members on here. If y'all have any questions, you can either put them in the chat and I'll ask them, or you can unmute and say, hey, just jump in if you want to. I don't see any right now. I don't see any chats. Okay. Well, cool. So that's, the premise of going out, testing your dollars, spending them and watching them is phenomenal. And it's so basic to business, but the reason you said it is because everybody overlooks it and nobody does it. Right. So, it's one of those things, even for me, as an entrepreneur, we get going. And like you said, sometimes it's you know what, this is a pretty good ad. This will work. I'm just going to send it out. Or, hey, this is a pretty good email. Let's just send it out. Or this is a pretty good whatever. And we don't go back and see if it's working. We don't measure to see if it brought any revenue, or are people, do they hate it? Do they unsubscribe? Whatever. Because, especially in an entrepreneurial journey, sometimes we're just moving so far and so fast, it's hard to keep up. Andy did ask what the cost is for a service like yours, and I don't know if that's even something you can say without getting into more details, but what would something like that be?
Yeah, I'll give some examples. So it does depend. Usually the way that it works is it's some percentage of your media spend. And a lot of companies have like a minimum amount. This I think is the best system because what happens is as you spend more money, the agency should be able to put more resources on your account. There are a few companies that offer like flat pricing, but basically what happens is their biggest clients kind of get hosed because they're paying as if they have a $5,000 budget for management and then they have $100,000 budget. It's like, it's like paying your COO what you would pay if your company was 1/20th the size.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like thinking it's a deal. Like, look, I'm only spending this much for a COO of my $1 billion company. He's only 100 grand a year. And it's like, well, what are you missing out on? Because you need a lot more at that level, right? So that's what you want is you want a company that's going to kind of grow with you as you scale and be able to put more resources onto your account. The actual amounts and how they work. So it's going to be ad spend plus management fees. The ad spend, the lowest we'll recommend is usually around 4 grand. Technically we'll go as low as 2 in kind of rare circumstances. And then usually people don't spend more than say 15 grand a month starting out, right? So we're sort of looking at this 4 to 15 grand range. And then the management fee depends on how much the ad spend is. What you'll find is that it decreases as a percentage as your ad spend goes up. But it's not like exactly the same. So I'll give an example. We'll charge 2 grand if you're spending 4. So that would be 6 total, 4 for ads and 2 for management. And then if you're spending 20, I think we're like 37.50. So that's as you can see, like a smaller percentage of it. I think at 10 grand, we're 27.50, right? So you go from 10 to 20 and you pay an extra grand for management. And then that goes all the way down to the point where we're in like single digit percentage of spend once you get above 100 grand.
yeah. Love that. Love it. And so that makes sense. And what I guess people can reach out to you. I know what's your website, just while we're on that topic.
Yeah, it's batemancollective.com. And you can, just Google it, Bateman Collective, you'll find us.
Okay. Can you just while we're here, just for like the brand new people that are hearing this maybe for the first time or have heard it before but never seriously considered this as a lead generation, like how in the world how do you from Utah or wherever you are now get my leads here? I'm all the way in South Carolina. How do you find leads for me, and then how do I know that they're there, and what does that practically look like? Can you tell me?
Like the basics of like the function.
Just like the beginning.
I'll try to describe this like whole process, even like the onboarding, like as simply as I can. So let's just say someone was interested in this. You reach out to us. You have a call with an expert, and really our goal in that call is try to figure out like what market are we targeting, what's our budget look like, just some of those basic things, right? Then you work with a strategist where we'll make like a deeper strategy and everything, and we'll get access from you to like things like your website, to your Google Ads account if you have one, call tracking stuff, CRM integrations, all that stuff. So we go through this whole process of like basically getting all this information from you that helps us understand how to integrate well with what you're doing. The next step is that the ads go live. After ads go live, that's when you're officially able to start getting leads. And the way it works is somebody's searching on Google. We are placing your ads theoretically where it's like highest value, right? So we're finding people who are like highly likely to become a deal, and we're trying to get those clicks. And then those people go to a landing page, which is just like a fancy word for like a page of a website that you don't use for anything else. It doesn't have like the menu where people click around and stuff like that. It's kind of like, here's a page. It's simple. It's got minimal content on it. It says, fill out this form. We did an offer for your house, right?
Yeah.
People fill out that form. What happens? Usually we'll just ask for a phone number and a property address. Once they fill that out in the form, we're going to text that lead to you. We're going to email it to you, and we're going to integrate it in with your CRM. Right? So you can be notified, that a new lead is there. And that's important because you want to get to the lead really quickly. You don't just want to kind of check once a day and see what leads you got and call them. It's sort of like drop everything, call the lead right when it gets in.
Yeah.
And then we'll also take them through a questionnaire on the website where we ask them a bunch of other questions. And about 80% of people will fill out the entire thing, not just the first section. But the reason we give you the lead as soon as the first section is filled out is that person, they just did a Google search. They found you. What happens? Like if I'm searching for something and someone doesn't get back to me immediately, I'm just going on to the next one. I'm reaching out to them. I kind of have this pain. I'm going to figure it out until my problem's solved. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why we give you the lead and you're supposed to call it quickly, but we'll also ask the person additional questions and that'll keep them on your website for a little bit of time. And once they finish answering all those questions, we'll send that information to you. But the goal is that they answer their phone, you get a hold of them before they even finish that. So they're like kept on your website and they don't go reach out to somebody else. So that's a basic process. Like the ads are targeted towards motivated sellers and they're targeted towards whatever geographic area you specify. And then after the point the lead's generated, the ball's kind of in your court. We'll try to keep them on your website for a little bit. We'll try to send you the information as quickly as we can, as many different ways as we can. And then your job is, of course, to get them under contract.
I love that. I hadn't thought about that the second part of the form is a little bit of a stall tactic, right? To keep you like it's your chance to get these people. Hurry up and call. Because we do know, y'all know, if you search for shoes, as soon as you leave that Google, every ad you see is going to be shoes, right? And now that I've spoken it out loud, I'm probably going to get a shoe ad, so that's going to happen to that seller, right? So as soon as they've gone to your site and they've looked around and put something in a form, Google knows, other marketers know. And so their social media, their web traffic is going to now be flooded with these ads. So it's so important for us as buyers to get there soon. So I never even thought about it as being a stall tactic. So I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon, I love all this stuff. Again, I don't want to do it. I'd like to hear how it works. I like the numbers of it all. Like I love getting into the data, but not. Amber said, "Now we're all going to get shoe ads. You're welcome." But yeah, this has been great, and I don't know if anybody else has any other questions. Maybe just one more minute if y'all have one. But Brandon, is there anything that you would leave for, say, the new person who's just now getting started and maybe don't have the budget for online ads? We do see a lot of people, especially in our local events. We hold meetups and live events basically every single week, and there's always someone that's just coming in, just finding real estate, deal finding, wholesaling, flipping, whatever. And that, the budget's not there yet, but they believe in it. Like you said, they believe in it. They know there's opportunity. Where's a good place for them to start for marketing, to start getting some leads?
This might be like a slightly more loaded question than you may have realized. Because I think it's a changing target. It's a moving target a little bit. This industry, I think you'd agree, it's gotten hard. Like a lot of the people who are in the industry right now, and this applies to me too. Like I kind of rode this wave up of this industry. For a while, Bateman Collective had the same market share year over year and was just doubling in size because the industry is just growing underneath us, right? Yeah. It's nice. It's easy. And a lot of those people who are in this industry right now, maybe you're included, maybe wouldn't have made it if they started right now in the industry. But now that you've been doing it and you know how it works and stuff, like at the beginning, maybe you wouldn't have been able to pay the cost per deal that you pay now. But now you can pay it because the unit economics of it work. You just wouldn't have had the money for it at the beginning. So it's definitely getting harder, right? So taking it back to like at the beginning, we talked about resources. Somebody has to know like what they have and what they don't have, right? If you don't have money, but you do have time, your time is going to have to be what finds you deals at that point, right? So what the advice I would have given someone before is like, that's where channels like cold call are good. Here's the interesting thing though. We recently did a survey. I don't know if you participated in this. What we wanted, it doesn't exist in real estate investing, like benchmark reports of what's happening as a whole across the industry, right? So we said, we're the data company. Let's figure out a way to make this happen. So we have this survey and we had about 60 real estate investors fill it out, all different markets, all different stages of business, people doing 300 deals a year, people doing 15 deals a year, right? And just provide us all their data on what they're doing. And we ask for like return on investment by an individual marketing channel. We ask for all the exit strategies, how much they're making on those exit strategies, what their company gross margins are, what the net margins are, everything that you could likely imagine. And the insights from this were really cool. One of the insights, though, is that, believe it or not, cold call across all those investors surveyed had a worse return on investment than the average inbound channel. And the way it used to work was like, well, cold call, that's a pain in the butt, but it's cheap.
Right.
But it has a low cost per deal. So it's like, if you're starting out, you might end up with some brain damage, but like do that. And then, once you get some deals, you can hopefully move away from that to something that's a little bit more expensive. Now it's true that inbound channels are actually cheaper.
Wow.
And you don't have to deal with the brain damage of cold call. So that's something I found was really surprising to me. And it just like, I felt like my standard advice before was just go for cold call because like it's cheap. And that doesn't stick anymore because now inbound channels are cheaper. But the thing is, inbound channels are still really expensive. The reality is cold call just got way expensive, across the board. So I would just be looking, if I were just starting out, for anything I could do to hustle to get some budget, because the reality is you never want to start a marketing channel when all you've got is like a month's worth of budget or something like that. And you and I both know, I'm sure you as an experienced real estate investor, Andrew, you've gone through like periods with marketing channels where you lose a lot of money. And it's probably happened with every individual marketing channel too at some point. You had the long ramp up and stuff like that. And you just know, like, is the reward figuring out a marketing channel high? Yes, but you have to be willing to like stick in the game for a long time, which when it comes to a marketing channel, it costs a lot of money. You just got to have the bankroll to like sustain that for an extended period of time in order to figure that out. We're looking to test a new marketing channel at like 6 months plus of runway to be able to know what happens. And what you might prove after the 6 months is that it's not working for you. And that's got to be okay, right? Because the game of business is that you got to make bets, but none of your bets can be so big that you can't play the game after it, right? Think about it like you're playing poker. Like you can't be all in on anything because then you leave the table. Versus the game of business is if like you can continue to make bets, but they're small enough that you can at least stay in the game, like you will come out on top eventually. So I would do anything you can with your time. And what that might mean is like networking with realtors. What that might mean is like cold calling, but doing it yourself. And texting people and networking with other investors who could be locking up stuff and helping them disposition. Like there's a bunch of things you can do with your time, but you just got to be hustling for a period of time there. And so you have like enough marketing budget to give it a really good go.
I love that. And what you just said, because you have the data, like, you could say that with confidence, and it's something that we have seen, and I don't have the data, and I think we participated in that because all those things that you were talking about sound like I remember Marissa asking me, and we filling out some form for that. So I think we were in. But anyway, so when we started marketing for our own deals, well, before we were buying deals straight off the MLS, right? Free, like, just agents or MLS. Well, that started to go away because the industry started getting bigger, 2016, 17, 18. And then we were sending postcards, and it was like $1,000, $1,500 per deal. And so super cheap. But then more people started doing it, and more people, started getting in the industry. And now that's gone up to $4,500 per deal. And like you said, it's gotten more expensive. Now everything's got more expensive. We don't want to go down that road, but going into any business, and this is one of the things we fight against, I think, because of the, real estate investing with no money down and all the TikTok, everybody's like, oh, you can do this with nothing. And reality is, yes, you can, but it's a lot more time consuming, a lot more effort. You got to really have some hustle behind it. And we teach and we tell people now, and maybe you can share this or at least add this as a data point, our wide fan method, where we are literally looking in our own sphere of influence and what can our network bring us? Who's a referral? Who's a friend, family, neighbor, coworker that knows someone that sees a house, sees a property, sees someone that needs our service to get that first, second, third deal, and then we can start putting money towards the marketing because that's really hard to build a full business on, right? Your network, your sphere is going to go away after a while, but getting started and building up a bankroll for your business, that is the number one way that we see people doing it. And So
Yeah, I support that 100% because the blessing and the curse of this industry is that it's feast or famine,
mm,
right? And all it takes for some people is like just one good deal, but you got to find through some hustle, through some grit, to where you can then start to fund some of the stuff to start get more consistent deal flow and start to roll that in. But it's just as easy as it is to like have feast when you have just that one deal. It's just as easy to have famine when like you're not getting it, right?
yeah,
You could like be negative on a marketing channel for 12 months and then get one deal and make all your money back. Like it's the reality of the industry that we're in. So that's why it's like it's a lumpy business until you get to the point where you're doing a lot of deals every month, and then it doesn't feel quite as lumpy the way
yeah,
that revenue comes from.
yeah. Uh, I love it. I love it. Well, I appreciate all of your time, Brandon, your expertise. This has been fabulous. I don't know if I'm getting feedback from somewhere, but thank you so much, Brandon, for being here. And guys, we got his website. We'll put the link in the show notes. Bateman Collective. Uh, Andy said, "What's the average cost per lead per deal?" Um, we'll get into that because I think there might be a lot because per lead depends on how many leads per deal. And I think, well, that's a good stat because Brandon, I think it's somewhere, what was it, like somewhere around 15 to 25 leads for you guys that you're seeing in your company.
Yet the number of leads per contract averages about 15.
Okay, yeah.
Um, some people convert contracts to deals better than others, right? So leads per contract and leads per deal, it's going to depend on your contract fallout. But leads per contract, 15 is about average. And our top 10% of closers are like 7 or 8. And then our bottom 10% are about 23 leads per contract. That gives you an idea of kind of like the range of expected possible outcomes. As for cost per lead, this is a tough question because it varies so much. Like all I could picture in my mind is like this like massive like bell curve. It shows like what cost per lead tends to be. And we have clients with a $50 cost per lead, and we have clients with an $800 cost per lead, right? So it's hard for me to look at that and tell you where you're going to be. I can tell you some factors that it really depends on. So one of them is how big the spreads are in your market. What you'll find is that markets with larger spreads, people are willing to pay more money for leads, so they bid up the prices. And that just comes down to the fact that you can get a better return on investment. Because if we just talk like cost per lead and then leads per contract, people kind of reverse engineer like cost per deal in their mind. And then they're like, well, I'm in Indianapolis, so I can't be profitable with that. And then someone in California is like, oh, I'll have a 10x return. And it's really like those things self-adjust. Like in Indianapolis, your leads are going to be a little cheaper. In California, they're going to be more expensive. The other aspect is how many markets or how wide around a market you're targeting. And this is something it catches people off guard because it's specifically true about PPC, and it's not true about other channels like direct mail and cold call and texting and TV and radio, who knows what else, right? And it's that the wider you go geographically, your cost per lead is going to go down, even if you're targeting areas that are equally competitive. And what it comes down to is it's a pay-per-click system. You're putting in bids. And if you're in a small area, you have to bid really high because when there's an auction, you have to win the auction because you have to get the click because you need to spend all your budget. Versus if you are targeting, for example, the entire United States, how high do you have to bid to still get enough clicks to spend your budget? Not very high at all, right? You could just lowball Google and you're still going to pick up some. I think of it like you're giving offers on the MLS. If you're just like with one click of a button, you could submit an offer to every house on the MLS in the entire United States at once. What percentage of market value would you have to submit that offer at to get one house? It could be really low versus if you're submitting an offer on 2 houses and you need to get one of them, how high do you have to submit an offer? Probably a much higher percentage of ARV because you got to get one of those. And the same thing happens with PPC. So people who target a lot of markets, they tend to get a lower cost per lead, and people who target one market get a higher cost per lead. And then it also depends on how you're targeting that market and how big your market is. Like small markets tend to be a higher cost per lead as well. Also, if I were to do your market a 50-mile radius around it versus a 20-mile radius around it, I'm going to have a lower cost per lead around 50 miles than I would with 20. So those are the components that affect it. Basically, the less people we're targeting, the less searches there are. The less searches there are, the more aggressive we have to be on bids. And then the more aggressive we have to be on bids, the higher the cost per lead.
Yeah. Yeah. So guys, if you're not a numbers person or a data guy, y'all save this, rewind it, slow it down a little bit, take some
There's the fact.
add,
There's a lot.
yeah, getting ChatGPT to record it and give you a summary, because there's a lot there, and it shows that this is what you've lived and breathed for the last 8 years. This is what and it just comes out so naturally, and I'm trying to keep up, but there's a lot there. I love the expertise, and that's why we wanted you on our marketing call for our partners and also this podcast. So you guys, if you're hearing this for the first time, you can actually go watch it. It's on our YouTube channel as well. REI Deal Finders on YouTube. Their Facebook group is REI Deal Finders, the group, and then dealfindersclub.com. So you can find us anywhere. Come to our live meetups. Everything, all the meetups are free. So come check us out if you're anywhere in South Carolina. Brandon, again, thank you so much for all of your time. This has been amazing. This has been phenomenal. And hopefully we'll have you on again. We'll do this again and we'll see if we can't get even deeper in this data.
Yep. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the REI Deal Finders podcast. You can find out more and apply to be a part of the REI Deal Finder community at reidealfinders.club.